So, but yes. So yeah, some of you all late starters to Overwatch. Shame. Where were you when Donovan was pleading with you?
We can always use more heroes, man. It's because I played it 2 years ago at BlizzCon when they announced it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is like Team Fortress. This is awesome. This is pretty good. And I played it last year at BlizzCon, and I'm like, wow, this is actually really fucking good. And then I got into closed beta, and I just, my god, man. I mean, to be fair, full disclosure, I did put in like 1,200 hours into TF2, like before they just decided to just stop balancing it and saying, fuck it. But yeah, Overwatch is multiplayer only online shooter done correct. It's like TF2 3 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I mean, it looks good, to be honest. I have momentarily thought about buying it, but I don't want to get into a game like that right now because it'll suck all my time. But I mean, it looks like a solid game. Trust me, if I had a lot of free time, I would be on it, no doubt. So, but you know, that's a separate thing. So yes, I blame you all for not having that podcast, but in the future we'll have other ones. So we'll get off of Bane's thing. Bane's already getting on to me about. But I trying to answer your question, motherfucker. If you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. Jesus Christ, you know what I mean?
Podcasting live from across the United States, this is the Multitapped Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Multitapped Podcast, y'all. We're trying some new stuff there, so if it doesn't always work out as well as I had planned, you can blame me 100%. But trying to get a little more professional rather than a bunch of assholes jerking off with a crappy Skype call, you know what I mean? So hopefully you leave us some feedback, whether you like the way we did the last week's podcast with the videos, and now I'm trying to do intros for you all who are here watching us. So, again, trying to make it a little more entertaining, you know, as entertaining as it can be with a bunch of us talking about nothing. So, this week, episode number 13, which really we probably should have scheduled the Friday the 13th one as the 13th, but, you know, it can't always be that way. So Hindsight, exactly. You know, sometimes just to work that way. So, episode number 13, we are continuing our talk of the video games that we did a couple weeks ago. Actually, I think about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. And as luck would have it, we have the exact same people back. So you will pick up almost exactly where you left off. So, and you know, it could never be a music podcast without Nico the Wee Guy, which is he's always a staple, always on top of the music stuff. He keeps us real, the savant or the Rain Man of Multitapped as far as music goes. And then next to him, Wes Sapo, again, as always, keeping us, probably has the most experience with actual music other than maybe Jay Dubious as far as listening and the fact that he's old, so he's been around.
Yep.
So he gets that one. And then, as always, from the Guardians, and now proud father, had to have finally have birthed the Overwatch since they've been talking about it for months and months.
Mr. Yeah, about time, right?
Exactly. Mr. Donovan OneEye, yes, is back joining us again.
And it feels so good, too, let me tell you. Like, and not even being sarcastic there, like, this weekend was fun in Agents Rising, but you know, I am burnt out, and it's nice to be home. You know what I mean? It's good to be back with you guys.
No, definitely. So we are back. We are back in the swing of things. And just in case all you know, I know some people stay or come for the beginning or come at the end, so I'll stay it twice. Do be prepared. In a couple weeks, E3 will be coming out, or the E3 week will be starting. Mr. J. Dubious, along with some other unnamed guests as of so far, will be starring in that particular special podcast. I'm not exactly sure how many they're going to be yet. I know there'll definitely be a Wednesday podcast, but there'll probably be some other days peppered in there because obviously the E3 covers so much stuff. You couldn't really talk about it all in one day. So, you know, in this, obviously we all know who E3 is, so I don't have to really talk about it. So that should be something really interesting to see when it comes up. So be prepared for that. I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing what Nintendo says about what they're doing and some of the other games that Microsoft and PlayStation are going to be launching out as well. So that should be good. So let's kick it right off where we were before. We kind of left off with people hating on Genesis for some reason. I have no idea why, and it was hilarious.
Hating on me for liking Genesis.
Oh, I know, yeah.
That's how I remember it.
Yeah, exactly. Donovan OneEye was threatened. His asshole was threatened by Jared by saying he was crazy for liking Genesis music, which I think that's a little bit of an overreaction, but that just shows you in the world of music, if there's one debatable thing, it's about how good the Genesis sound chip actually was. And obviously, since we talked about it, you're going to get death threats, or ass threats. Sorry. So, that's
much worse.
Exactly. Much worse. Yeah, exactly. Death is only lasts for a few minutes. Pulling your ass out lasts a lifetime. So, yeah. So, we're going to continue that. But of course, we talked a lot about Genesis. So we're going to kind of move in the other side of the 16-bit, which was Super Nintendo. Maybe even catch some of the other ones that were out around the time, like TurboGrafx. Maybe, I don't know if 3DO would be considered that. Stuff like that, just to give it a little fair, a little fair across the board. Maybe even some 32X games. Not that I can remember hardly any of them, but some stuff like that. So, we got to give Genesis a day in the sun. And we'll move on in the Super Nintendo. So I know if I can go to one guy who can start us off, Nico the Wii guy will do it here, proudly wearing his Rush t-shirt. So, Nico, give me a few of your top favorites Super Nintendo soundtracks, and don't go for the staple ones. Don't tell me something stupid like Final Fantasy or Zelda or shit like that. Give me some actual Jim Powers. I think has a good soundtrack, but we already talked about it. So give me some other ones.
Jim has had his time.
Yes.
But for others that need some time in the spotlight, Mortal Kombat Falcon's Revenge. It's one of my other favorite soundtracks of all time for the Super Nintendo. It's a Super Scope game.
That's what I thought. I actually found that at a pawn shop one time, and I bought it solely off of the label art because it's fucking awesome.
It is. To me, it's iconic. That's a childhood game, and the music has stuck with me. And it really is beautiful. It's the same composer who did later on like the Paper Mario games and earlier Fire Emblem on the Famicom, so... It's a good composer, but definitely her work on this one is one of the best. And also the previous game, Battle Clash. Really good title with soundtrack as well, but Mortal Kombat is superior to me. This is one for Rewind Mike, Waterworld, which was a PAL-only release. Once again, beautiful soundtrack. Very, awesome compositions. It is really good. If you haven't listened to that, take a listen.
Was it Ocean that did that?
Oh yes, Ocean Software.
And did anyone happen to look that up? Why it didn't come out here? Matter of fact, did we get any Waterworld games?
We got the Virtual Boy one.
Oh, yeah, Waterworld, like the cartoon?
No, the movie.
The movie, okay.
Yeah, based off that.
I don't think. Here's the thing. Kind of funny, like you were saying. I know the PAL one existed. Of course, I'm sure they would have liked to have forgotten that the Virtual Boy one. But at that point, what could they hurt the system by releasing that game? I gotta say again, I do know that they were developing, and I saw screenshots for Waterworld on 3DO. So it almost seems like they were trying to push the game. But it's kind of curious to me that, for instance, something as stupid as Waterworld was on PAL, right? Why the fuck didn't they just go ahead and release it? What could the worst could have happened? I don't understand why you, especially if it's something like that where it's a completed game and all they got to do is just translate it over for us. So I want to see what the big deal is. So I
mean, to be fair, we could get into region locking as a discussion, but I've always thought it was confusing as shit too. Like, you have games that are the exact same label on the same console and just wildly different by region. Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
It's true. I do know distribution and whatnot does play a small part in that kind of shit for the licensing and stuff, but. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Waterworld did better in the box office overseas than it did at home.
Overseas?
Anywhere overseas, yeah, pretty much anywhere but the U.S. essentially. And again, and this will be something later, and we can talk about this later. But I shameful as it is, I like Waterworld. I liked it when it came out. I still like it. That and The Postman I enjoy. For a good movie to watch, just to hang out and see. But some people just rail on those movies, they just can't get enough of it. They just want to shoot you for watching or even saying that you like that movie. So I don't see what the big deal is. I would have liked to have played Waterworld on the Super Nintendo. I mean, it couldn't have been any worse than Demolition Man, which is pretty fucking bad on the Super Nintendo, or Last Action Hero, or any of that other shit that was terrible. I mean, why they got all those? We couldn't get Waterworld. I mean, come on.
No, Waterworld's actually a competent game. It's typical Ocean fare. If you've played most of their games, they're kind of I don't know, it's a little unfair in some parts, but it's not bad. Too bad we didn't get it, but...
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to try to download a ROM or something and play it. Has anyone here played it? Downloaded it on, I guess not main, but...
I don't dick around with PAL, dude. I do North America and then occasionally Japan, because I do like Famicom. The boxes and the cards are very pretty. I like collecting them.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I don't. I have not played a lot of PAL stuff. I've owned a few here and there through collecting, but I've never actually had a chance to play any of them. So I don't know. But that would be an interesting one to try out. So Waterworld, and you said something else. What else?
Metal Combat Falcon's Revenge, and I'll give one more just to round out, with 3. Utopia, The Creation of a Nation. Once again, another beautiful soundtrack. Funny enough, just these 3 are just all beautiful. It's not like anything like completely like rockin' or just anything else. It really is. These soundtracks. I've gone to a lot of the just sort of more melodic soundtracks from the Super Nintendo, and Utopia is very much that. I mean, the tracks like without looping are go to 10 minutes long. It's like ridiculous. Or it's like a 40-minute soundtrack without looping any of the 5 songs that are on that soundtrack. It is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, again, it kind of comes back to what we talked about last time. The chip, and I think they made the conscious decision, I believe. The chip in the Super Nintendo lent itself for like some stuff like Waterworld, Jurassic Park, and even some of the Final Fantasies and Secret of Mana. Just that sound to be able to hold the notes, a few notes, and make it sound like a symphony and carry a very nice tune for a long period of time without having to take like a 3-minute song and loop it. It just allowed you to do that. So a very, very nice chip, terrific chip. And on the other side of it, I still hold up. I know people are going to get in my ass about this, but
yeah, I was going to say
something. Genesis went the other way and did rock stuff, and I still think, like for instance, I was listening, and I think it even played in the pre-show stuff. I played Comic Zone, and I was listening to that soundtrack again. Such a good soundtrack, and whether or not it's played with the Genesis chip or you listen to some like actual recorded versions or even remixes. I mean, the stuff on that is terrific. I mean, I just think Genesis has it better. But, I mean, there are some soundtracks that don't sound as good. So
okay, my point in that whole argument, just so we don't get any pitchforks and torches out like last time, is that for me, it was the Genesis sounded more like video gamey, and like those whole like console generations are really like video gamey to me, Like they're not hyper realistic. They're not like you're going for 3D polygons and photorealism and shit like that. It's like playing a fucking video game. So a lot of the time I just enjoy the Genesis chip for that more. But nobody freak the fuck out. I know it's inclined to happen, so everybody just calm down before it starts.
I know.
Now that makes sense.
Yeah, this is true. What is Bane? Hold on. What is Bane? What are you bitching about, Bane? Coming into my chat, bitching about something. If you want to know, we doing one bi-monthly. Okay, well here's how the schedule is gonna. Let me just take a minute here, so because that way Bane, Clifford doesn't come out because he gets enraged. Bane, pretty much the essential thing is this. There are some things that come back. I don't know where you were last week, but that was the second or third horror podcast. I don't know where you're sleeping on that one too. The third, yeah. So we're going to have the third RPG podcast here in about right after the week after E3. So yes, per certain themes, stuff will be coming back semi-regularly. I wouldn't say, I try to keep it more than a month, so maybe 6 weeks if possible. So yeah, we got kind of rotating certain things, and of course stuff will be like I've told many people before. Had I known more people were going to be involved in Overwatch, I probably would have just done a podcast for Overwatch itself.
Hell yeah!
But
But
no one really. The problem is no one really did. I think Donovan and maybe like one other person were the only other people saying, "Hey, I'm going to get Overwatch." Some of you all toyed with it, and then apparently after it came out, now a bunch of you are hooked on it like crack.
Okay, this is a funny story. No, let me tell the story. This is the history of Overwatch and Multitapped. So I've been working with that game for like 6 fucking months straight, and I'm like, guys, this game is amazing. You need to get it. And everybody's like, they don't have it on the Super Nintendo. I can't play it. Blah, 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 blah. And then finally, it gets to open beta, and Mr. J. Dubious plays it, and he's like, hey, that was actually pretty fun. I had a lot of fun with that. I think I might end up buying it. And I was like, sweet. That's pretty cool. Then without saying anything, motherfucking Mike just buys Overwatch and has just been playing it nonstop. Like, starts a second YouTube channel for Overwatch highlight videos and shit like that. It's just like, wow, dude. And then Lucius is sitting there like, I don't know if it's going to be any good. And so me and Mike are sitting there pleading with him, and he finally agrees to get it. And now I come back from Santa Ana, and I guess the Popka picked it up too. So like we're getting really close to having a multi-tapped Overwatch team.
Exactly.
Like,
It's
coming, dude.
Exactly. Here's the thing, though, and I say this again. I plead out to you. I have no problem doing like in the future scheduling certain games out. But you know what? I'm going to give it to Donovan because Donovan was on that tip from day one, and the rest of y'all were just apparently sleeping on the job. I have not changed my stance. I might buy Overwatch. It looks semi-interesting, but it's not going to be something on my list right away. But you all motherfuckers, just like, oh, maybe I'll try it, and now you're stuck on it like some sort of drug. So had you showed that enthusiasm before, we might have done an Overwatch. So I blame you all for not having an Overwatch podcast. Doom was one that everyone was excited about, so we did it.
To be fair, that's one I wanted to talk about too.
Exactly, we did a Doom podcast. So in the future, some other things will come up. I expect very fully that we will do a Friday the 13th game when it comes out in Halloween time. Because I got a feeling that game's going to be really something interesting to see. And so maybe even like a Gears of War if anyone's interested. And I don't know. You guys got to tell me other games because I don't follow everything. But yes, Bane, we kind of rotate stuff. So yes, we're going to be doing a lot of music podcasts, a lot of RPG podcasts, horror podcasts, all that good stuff. So we're going to try to keep it going. We're not going to talk about the same shit. So... But yes, so yeah, some of you all late starters to Overwatch, shame. Where were you when Donovan was pleading with you?
We can always use more heroes, man. It's because I played it 2 years ago at BlizzCon when they announced it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is like Team Fortress. This is awesome. This is pretty good. And I played it last year at BlizzCon, and I'm like, wow, this is actually really fucking good. And then I got into closed beta, and I've just, my god, man. I mean, to be fair, full disclosure, I did put in like 1,200 hours into TF2. Like before they just decided to just stop balancing it and saying fuck it. But yeah, Overwatch is multiplayer only online shooter done correct. It's like TF2 3 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It looks good to be honest. I have momentarily thought about buying it, but I don't want to get into a game like that right now because it'll suck on my time. But I mean, it looks like a solid game. Trust me, if I had a lot of free time, I would be on it, no doubt. So, but, that's a separate thing. So, yes, I blame you all for not having that podcast, but in the future we'll have other ones. So, we'll get off of Bane's thing. Bane's already getting on to me about, but I'm trying to answer your question, motherfucker. If you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? So, okay, Mr. West, same question that I asked of Nico of you. Give me some, now try not to get drool all over the common ones, okay? I don't want
the common ones.
Like the ones we all know that are going to come out.
Slob over Mario and Zelda.
Exactly,
No, I can skip Mario and Zelda. I mean, obviously the Final Fantasy games, but I don't know. Super Metroid was always one that really.
I'll give you that one. That's a good one.
It just fit the atmosphere of the game. Like that game really tripped me out when I was a kid and I played it, and like I don't know. I used to have dreams about that game just from the soundtrack alone.
Oh yeah.
But Konami, man, you can't go wrong with Konami games on the Super Nintendo. You got Gradius 3, which has an outstanding soundtrack. Batman Returns has a great soundtrack. Contra 3, of course. Castlevania 4. Man, I really like the Konami.
Well, give me, like I say, because I know we could go on with those, but give me, for instance, Contra 3. What to you sets it apart? Because I was going to say that too, but what sets it apart, you think, from 1 and 2, its predecessors? Like, what was the step up? Because I know what I would say, but I'm interested in what you think.
Well, it's just the music is heavy, man. It's just it fits the intensity of the game. There's just bullets all over the place, aliens coming at you left and right, and the music is just intense, man. It just fits with the whole atmosphere of the game. Shit's blowing up, and I like how the songs have a little bit of a lull at certain parts of the stage, and it kind of times out to where you'll be fighting a certain mid-boss. And like on stage 3, when you fight that boss on the wall, the music kind of goes into a little bit of a lull right there, as long as you're, keeping up with the game. And I just love shit like that, man. And I don't know, that soundtrack just blew me away the first time I ever heard it. And it just sounds like it kind of has that Super Nintendo orchestra sound to it too. So the percussion is heavy. It's just a heavy soundtrack for a heavy game.
Yeah. You know what's weird about Contra 3? And I don't, maybe I'm overthinking it too, but Contra 3 can be one of the first soundtracks I can remember that was completely done this way, at least for the Super Nintendo, where, especially the first level, the sound effects, the explosions, the guns, somehow they managed to, either they matched up tonally the sound of those effects to the music, or they were just geniuses in the way they layered it. It's when you shoot the gun normally, or any blow shit up, sometimes it distorts the music, right? Because you just can't hear it. For some reason, Contra 3 is one of those few games where you shoot your shit, or they know you're going to shoot it, so they set it open enough that it fits everywhere. It's like, so you can just go around blowing shit up, killing people, even the sound effects of people dying, but the music fits so perfectly with the sound effects. It's like a dream game to play, sound-wise, all the way across the board. That's what, to me, sets it apart from Contra 1 and 2. Not that they were bad. Contra 1 and 2 had good soundtracks, but I think the soundtrack was just a little bit beefed up more than with mixing with the game audio for the rest of the stuff. So sometimes it's a little bit of a strain on the ears to hear it. But Contra, like he was saying, Contra 3, every track seems like the guy just took, like he had the game complete in front of him with all the sound effects and just layered it, mixed it perfectly. I mean, perfectly. Only thing I could kind of relate it to, and that people are going to rate me because I know this is not a love soundtrack. Loved the soundtrack. Alien 3 kind of had, to me, even though some people complained about the mix between the two of them, I think the way Alien 3 did some of that sound reminds me a lot of the way Contra was able to mix in their music. So it's very subtle, it's there, but it mixes in a lot with the stuff that's going on in the movie and the game. So yeah, awesome soundtrack in Contra. Can't take anything away from that. And like he was saying too, Super Metroid, man. I didn't play a lot of it, but that's another terrific game music overall. Great game too, but yeah,
one of the things I really like about the Super Metroid music, and one of the things that really strikes me about it, because I agree it's an absolutely amazing soundtrack, is, and this is my opinion, so nobody freak out if you disagree, but when I think of like Super Nintendo soundtracks, it's the only one I can think of that's really like ambient and like atmospheric. Like
Yeah.
there's so you know there are areas that are literally just like drips and like sounds of like things moving around. And so that's what I really like about the soundtrack, is it sounds so organic and fitting. Like I can't really think of another soundtrack that has that kind of quality to it on the Super Nintendo. And like I said, that's personally. It's just that's why the Super Metroid soundtrack always really stuck with me. I thought it was fantastically directed.
No, I agree with you, man. It's like I said, man, I used to dream about it and stuff, and just based off of the soundtrack alone. And then just that ambience of when you first hit Planet Zebes, and you got the rain coming down.
And the thunder and stuff. It's so good.
And it's just like before the planet comes back to life, it's all kind of dead. It just has that, I don't know, man. It just feels like you're in this just dead planet, like abandoned planet. I mean, I don't know. For me, it like took me there, dude. It was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And on a side note, not that I want to pimp anything, but I was able to work on a Super Metroid remix album. A buddy of mine by the name of Hyde 209 actually did the entire game, and he let me sit it on one track, and a couple of my other friends were there. It just, again, the power of that soundtrack, again, lending itself to be redone with actual instruments sounds terrific. And it just goes to show you stuff like that in Contra 3. A lot of stuff in the 16-bit era was really, like, when you put real instruments to it, you know, it just holds up that much better as well. So yeah, a great soundtrack. Can't take anything away from it. Did you have another one there, Wes?
I did, and someone in the chat mentioned it too. The Donkey Kong Country games.
Dude. All the ones I was gonna say have been getting nailed by fucking Catmax, dude. I can't get any of these in. He's just listed them all, man.
But especially Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yep. That's like pinnacle Super Nintendo soundtrack right there.
Yeah, like
And
one of
they
my
all are.
Yeah, one of my all-time favorite tracks for any Super Nintendo game though comes from the Bramble levels.
Stickerbush Symphony.
Yeah, man, like good God. It's just
Nico is like Rain Man. He just knows every single one and all the components.
But I gotta also say that the water music from Donkey Kong Country 1.
Oh my God,
Like ambience.
iconic.
Man. I just want to like dose some acid and just sit back and fry to it, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
you're just like sitting in
Haven't
the
already?
planetarium. They're doing a laser show. You just have headphones in, just like.
yeah, man. Like, oh god, I could just pause the game and just sit back for a couple hours, man, and just melt away to that music, man. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, that's a really popular one. That and I think Mario had a few too. Didn't Mario have like the water or the sky one that was real popular? Oh, the underwater Super Mario or Mario 64, the underwater. It seems to be like
yes.
some of the underwater themes usually get pretty good reviews. Like you said, the one for Donkey Kong, the one for Mario 64.
They have to give them good music because underwater levels suck. They're
exactly.
They are second only to ice levels. Like.
Yep, I
Mitch,
agree with you
Donkey
100.
Kong
percent
Country got those right. His ice levels. in Donkey
Yeah, those
Kong.
were actually really fun.
Great music too.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know where Rewind Mike is, but Rewind Mike is like the king of Donkey Kong Country. He's definitely got that speedrun technique down to a science. On that. I like the game a lot, but I don't know. I never really wanted to try to speedrun it, but he's definitely got almost all three of them down, I believe. So
Damn.
Third's the easiest to me.
yeah.
Which is also a shame that game, the third one, doesn't get praised as much in the soundtrack, because no one really is like, oh, the third one, but the third one's got some great tracks too.
No,
Once again, with the underwater theme, which actually takes a really dark tone, which is pretty interesting, but I like it.
Yeah, no,
And the
I
mechanical
agree. All
levels.
three of them.
Yeah,
all
no,
three of them
they're-
are fantastic.
Yeah, the good games. It's too bad that I didn't really think Donkey Kong 64 held up as a game or the music. I mean, it was okay. But
I really
I
liked
actually like
that
it
game.
more now than I did back in the day. Like replaying it, like as an adult, I enjoy it a lot more than I did. So I can kind of get around the jankiness of how it controls because I've played like MDK now, so I know what a real fucked up nightmare feels like.
yeah.
So, like,
I don't know what it was, but the and it's not from necessarily for music, but the 64 versions of a lot of our really popular Super Nintendo games just killed a lot of them. Like
no.
Earthworm
I like the CK64.
Earthworm Jim 3D was terrible. I don't think I don't know how I don't think Donkey Kong Country really held up well. Obviously Mario 64, they can't seem to miss with any Mario really. So, but yeah, some of those ones, Mega Man 64, that's I can't play that game either.
Yeah.
But there's but you know, I understand they were trying with certain things, but yeah, a lot of that shit just kind of fell apart. But it's all good. So we'll get to the 64-bit music because there are actually some good 64-bit stuff that came out on the old N64. But we'll get to that later. So good list, Wes. Even though you took out like 10 there when you were listing shit off, but that's okay.
Should have like a
that's
lightning
right.
round.
Yeah, lightning round, exactly. How many can you say? All right, so we'll move on to the OneEye wearing the Evil Dead shirt over there. The musical, nonetheless.
okay, yeah, it is Evil Dead the musical. Every time I go to Las Vegas, I see it. It's fucking great, dude. It's hard to find a better use for like $30 on the strip. It's a good time. But I am like legitimate a little bit salt because I had a list of like 3 or 4 in my head and they were literally all said in chat. So the only one I'm going to go back to because it's the only one I really care about since we already got into Donkey Kong was Sunset Riders. Because that game has some serious nostalgia for me. And the reason
I almost
why
said that one, dude.
it's so good! But like back in the day when I was a kid, my family, we used to always go to this bar called the Pioneer Inn in the mountains in this little town called Breckenridge. And like they had a tiny arcade and it was like an Area 51 machine in Sunset Riders. I used to sit there and just play it all fucking day. And then you can get it on the Super Nintendo and that port's amazing. It sounds amazing. Has some of, in my opinion, the best like recorded dialogue in any Super Nintendo game. Bury me with my money. Like it's so good. But the sound design in that game is amazing. The music in that game is amazing. Like even just thinking about the first level, like you hear the fucking horse clicks, the click. You know, it's so good. It's dude,
I love
I'll
the
drool
bonus
on it.
music, man.
It's
That
all
bu-
just so good, man.
That bonus jingle, dude. I love that.
But the one that I'll touch on, just because literally my entire list has been said at this point, and not going on mainstream games, is I'm surprised nobody really mentioned it, but F-Zero. I absolutely love the
he just
soundtrack.
Oh, that's right.
He just took one right off my list. Nice.
Hell yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, I mean, I'm honestly surprised by how often I don't hear people praise that game, and I just mean generally. Like, if you think about it, the way that game's designed, like, visually, how it plays is awesome. I like it more than Super Mario Kart. The music's great. The sound effects are great. Like, that is a fantastic cartridge. And that is some iconic music. Like, if you think about it, they were using it in so much stuff. It's been reused in Super Smash. It's been used in all of the different versions from then on, which at this point I almost have a complete F-Zero collection. I have the GameCube one and the Super Game Boy Advance one, all that. So that, to me, is a really good soundtrack. And especially because when I was like a kid and people had a Super Nintendo, that wasn't really a game that I saw people play. So it wasn't one that I was exposed to. So that was always kind of a surprise to me when I heard it.
Yeah, you know what? That's an interesting point you bring up. F-Zero, it's surprised me over the years because F-Zero is still like a $5, $10 game. It has never gone up anywhere close to like where other games I think that were released and sold as many copies as that game did went up. It's surprising to me because, again, like you were saying, I mean, F-Zero kind of has never really had as much success, I think, as with the first couple ones that they had. Pretty much just died off. But it's surprising to me because it is one of the best, like, on some of, like, not talked about as many games. Like, I don't know, people know about F-Zero, but they never go like, oh, let's talk about it. It's weird. It's like you're more likely to hear people talk about like Mario Kart and shit like that than you are to talk about F-Zero, which is a shame because it's an excellent game with excellent music. But luckily, I guess for some people, especially if you want to play it, that the price has never gone up. I still see it in bins for $5-10, so which is good.
I think it's kind of like
but, yeah,
Star Fox. I think it's more known for the like intellectual property aspect of it than the game. Like, yeah, people know Star Fox 64, but like nobody knows that there was a fucking Super Nintendo one. Are you kidding me? That motherfucker's still like $5. You know what I'm saying? And like F-Zero, hell yeah, everybody knows who's Captain Falcon is, and everybody's heard F-Zero, but nobody's ever seen the game or played it. Like, it's very weird to me. I don't know why it's so underrated, because as far as racing games are concerned, it is probably my favorite Super Nintendo title.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. I actually have a copy I bought at least like a year and a half ago of F-Zero, and it was like $6, and it was complete in box. I mean, that just shows you how cheap the game still is. It's just strange. I don't know why. I don't know why it never got super popular. But again, that's probably good for you all, because I know, like, I was out the other day and Mario Kart, the original Mario Kart, is almost up to like $25-30 now.
Yeah.
So and that's another must-have racing game on the Super. But again, another thing where it's like it probably sold not too much better than what F-Zero did, but again, people are going crazy and putting huge prices on it. So at least if you want to get a decent racing game, you can always throw down $5 and get that. Or maybe if you want to get Stunt FX, which was always an interesting, I think that's what it was called, game. So
Stunt Race FX.
Yeah,
It's a 10
Race,
frames per second game.
Yeah, so it's something interesting to play. But yeah, I don't know why F-Zero never got its day. Man, it just was one of those things. So what else did you have done?
Well, if I had to come up with one more off the top of my head, and I was thinking about mentioning this just because I was kind of surprised Nico didn't, but Super Mario RPG. That's another really, really good soundtrack. I mean, I know that I keep naming these games that are just kind of all around really good packages, but if you really think about it, a score can absolutely make a game. I mean, another good example, I mean, this is farther ahead in the gaming timeline, but like thinking of the Super Mario Galaxy games, the way that music interacts with those games entirely adds to the games. And a lot of these titles I'm listing, it's like that. Like all of the different setting musics and the fight musics and the boss battle music in Super Mario RPG just sounds so good. I just really I'm kind of a nerd. I like them.
Truth.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, nothing wrong with that. Nothing. I mean, I could see that.
Yeah, and like I said, I could talk about more, but since Turtles in Time got jacked and Chrono Trigger got jacked, like, also last time we ranted about Chrono Trigger, if memory serves, and we could absolutely go on and on and on about it. Frog's theme, in my opinion, is one of the best just video game scores ever. I fucking love it so much, dude. I can play it on my ocarina. Like, I'm super into that game. All the music's so good. Yeah, Chrono Trigger, amazing soundtrack. Donkey Kong Country, amazing soundtrack. Jungle Japes is the shit. Like,
Nice.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, didn't you buy a Super Game Boy at SGC? Or am I dreaming?
Yeah, Superboy. I'm actually looking at it right now, and
Superboy,
I have a Lufia 1 in it.
Nice.
Which, yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to have such cool games laying around in your Superboy like Luffy?
Yeah, it's funny. My girlfriend gave me a bunch of shit because she brought in a new bookshelf, and we were organizing my boxes, and I was going through games, and I'm like, when the fuck did I get Mega Man X? Like, all this shit, like, oh, I don't remember getting Final Fantasy 3, like.
Yeah, definitely. That's some good games. Sunset Rider is a good one to mention on there. But yeah, I'll have to make Donovan do that. Make him bring his Superboy when he comes down to Texas this year and play some Sunset Riders. So that's a good game.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that should be good. Again, as for all you don't know, I'm going to pimp it before I go into my stuff. We will be attending, and I say we because I'm not sure exactly who all, but a good majority of us will be going to Texas this year for the Retropalooza Arlington convention in October. So if anyone's going, definitely come see us. We may be doing some extra promotional stuff, so it may not be that hard to find us, but we'll give you more of the details as it comes up. But yeah, it's always a good time. So definitely come up and say hi to us, or tell us how bad we suck at doing podcasts or video game reviews or whatever you want. So it don't matter.
Like Aliens 3.
Exactly. But I'll discuss Aliens 3 with you until I'm blue in the face. So if you definitely want to come up and talk to me about that, we can do that for sure. So. All right, I'll give you a couple. Only one of mine was taken, which was F-Zero, but I'm glad somebody mentioned it, and it was on the mind other than just me. These ones may be a little weird, but just in my opinion. Now, so give me a little bit of a chance to defend it here. Because I don't think this is as popular as what some of the other ones are, at least for the soundtrack. I would say Star Fox for me, even though I really don't appreciate the game as much, and it definitely has not held up as well. Mainly just because of the way it looks. Most people go back to Star Fox 64 if you wanted like the definitive Star Fox. Not that the first one is bad, it just doesn't look as good. It looked unique, it just didn't hold up. But even though the soundtrack was kind of subdued a little bit and definitely not as nice as it could have been, especially on the hardware of the Super Nintendo, I think if you go back and see the themes that they put in place, I think they're really well done, and you can really if you want the definitive versions of the soundtracks, just listen to or play the game, listen to the N64 one. They pretty much take all the original ones and redo them, kind of like what they did with Castlevania, Super Castlevania 4. So same kind of deal. They took all the best ones from the previous 3 games and just launched them in there. So I definitely think Star Fox, definitely some very lasting, very good soundtrack moments from the first one, even though again it doesn't get as much of its dues. I think most people just skip over and go to the 64 version.
It's kind of a hard game to play. Like I'll admit it's one that I have in my collection, but I've only ever actually tried to play twice. Just not because I'm like, oh, this looks terrible, but because like it's hard to read visually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's that wireframe voxel bullshit tanks. Like what the fuck, Andros space?
Special FX chip.
I can't. Yeah. Like I mean, it's awesome for what it is. Don't get me wrong, and I appreciate it. I'm just saying it's difficult to read nowadays. It's kind of tricky.
Yeah, it definitely is. Again, I would be admitting to I don't play Star Fox 1 a lot. That doesn't come up on my games to play. I have beaten it a few times, but yeah, just whenever I think of playing Star Fox, I usually do the 64. Mainly probably because of the multiplayer. Like I had so much fun as a kid in StarCraft 64 doing multiplayer when people would come over. That's probably why it's more beaten into my head than the first one. So I give you that one. Like I said, I already said F-Zero. God damn, I forgot. Oh, another side one, and then probably people know this because I'm a big fan of it already. Bart's Nightmare. And now,
Really?
and now, interesting on
Bold
that.
move, Cotton.
Bold move, because there are a few that are crappy, but they weren't designed to be. That dream theme sprawls across a lot of different levels, and no, there's really. I'm not even talking about the main theme. That's just kind of like a takeoff of has a little bit of the Simpsons theme because that doesn't count. But the original music that's in there has such a really cool jazz type laid back feel, and not even rock, but just kind of that different feel, kind of like what you got with X-Men, Spider-Man and X-Men Arcade. If you've ever listened to that on Super Nintendo, what a classic soundtrack that is. I mean, hit the jazz type rock thing on the head totally. But similar to that, but just for some reason, Bart's Nightmare just had some really interesting sounds mixed in with the gameplay. Bart, when you're Bartman, when you're doing even the underwater stuff, which is like a really creepy soundtrack. Itchy and Scratchy when you're running around the house. A lot of that stuff to me was like just sounded really good, and I thought the presentation was well done on it. So I got to give a little bone out to them because I don't think a lot of people talk about Bart's Nightmare to begin with, just because it is a really hard, pain in the ass, difficult game to figure out how to play.
Yeah, not very enjoyable to myself, so I can't speak on experience.
Yeah, you exactly. It's not. I'll be first one to admit it's not the world's best game. It will give you grief just because of the way it's laid out. It could have been a little bit better, but I see where they were going. But I think the music is worth knowing. I've always loved the Bart's Nightmare theme. I always thought that was such a cool cool sound on there. And thirdly, on mine, I've probably mentioned it a million times, and I'm going to lay it down there because, again, I know people talk about it, but I don't think we talk about it enough. And I may have mentioned it even last pod. Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Can't put anything on the list. And again, and I say this again for you millennials like Mr. Nico, not that there's anything wrong with Nico, because Nico has done his homework. When you get into Super Nintendo, that is one of those games that sometimes people mention, but they don't mention it hard enough. You cannot have a Super Nintendo collection or call yourself a Super Nintendo player and not have played that game once or twice. Excellent game, hard as balls, but fair. A bunch of great mechanics, the double jumps, the weapons, and not only that, if you can listen to that whole soundtrack from beginning to end, it is excellent. There is not one bad track. I mean, that's kind of like what Wes was talking earlier about Super Metroid, where it puts you in that feel, that mode. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, because of what you're doing, you're obviously a knight on a quest to save I think it's his wife or princess or whatever, right?
Yeah,
so,
princess something.
And so you're dealing with sort of medieval type stuff, but it just, obviously the first level has the most iconic music, but even past that, you get in the water levels, you're fighting water demons, you get into ice levels, you're getting into castle themes, you're getting into hell themes. It all sounds so good. So good. I mean, I can't even express to you how good the composition matched with the reproduction for the sound. I mean, that's just one of those soundtracks you can listen to, and it's just terrific. I can't speak to it enough. If you've never played it and you see it, get it now, because I've seen it going up in price. Like the other day, I've seen people selling it for $20, $30.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is going up. It used to be a $10 game. You have to get the game. Even the continue music sounds awesome when they're waiting.
Yeah.
There isn't any
Even the
moment.
level intro, dude. The organ riff, they're like, like that all. That game's awesome. So you mentioned my Superboy earlier, and whenever I go on a work trip, I bring my Superboy in 3 games. And the 3 games are Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Mario Kart, and then Turtles in Time. That's what I bring. And it's just because they're the best games to just sit there and just chew on for an hour, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
The
definitely.
soundtrack is just so fucking good, that whole game. I agree with the statement that it has to be in your collection. It was one of those games where when I picked it up and played it, I was just like, why haven't I been playing this for forever? And I understand I'm fucking terrible. I haven't even got past the second level in the game, but it is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. It is so goddamn good.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact, again, and I say this, that it died. Basically, there was maybe two more versions after that one, and then it never came back. It blows my mind. I mean,
man.
That's a game. It's just like Wizards and Warriors. I mean, to me, it had such a good start, and then for some reason, it just kind of fell off the cliff at some point, and we never heard from it again. Stuff that could have been next level shit. Stuff that could be as iconic and continuing on as Contra did, or Star Fox, or Mario, or Zelda, or Metroid. I don't know what the hell happened to those two, but they just went boop and just never came back. But yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Capcom owns that game, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What the fuck are they doing? I mean, in a day and today when platformers and shit like that are coming back, this time would be the perfect one to redo that game, even in a small setting.
I agree, man. They could do they could even do just a digital only game for $10-15, kind of like they did with that new Strider. Mm-hmm. They could do that with a new Ghosts and Goblins. They keep throwing Arthur in Marvel vs. Capcom, so they're not ignoring him.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I agree.
I don't get it. Weird stuff. People, series dying. Like you said, I mean, they know he's there. I see him make appearances every once in a while in games, but they just don't seem to want to make a game for it. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, definitive. Have to have that in your Super Nintendo collection. If you don't, you're being lied to, because people will tell you shit like, oh, you got to get all 3 Donkey Kongs, and you got to get this and that. Yeah, you might have to get the first one. You might have to get Super Metroid. You might have to get Final Fantasy 3 and Lucius the Guy and Contra 3 and shit like that.
You got to have Jim Power.
No. But you have to get Super Ghouls and Ghosts. You have to. If you're gonna get those, it has to be in there. So yeah, definitely. Now there's other versions
of the game. I agree, but Super Metroid is in my opinion, top 3 best Super Nintendo games.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah.
So I feel like that one actually does make the you have to get it list.
Oh, you do. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to. you have to get those games I mentioned. But I mean, again, the problem is I think like Super Ghouls and Ghosts, everyone knows it's a good game who was around when it was released. We just don't talk about it.
Well, I think
like,
it's its
when people-
reputation too. That's a big part of it. People are fucking terrified of that game, dude.
Yeah, they are.
It may be, but I mean, it's not unfair. It's not like the first one. It's not like the.
Oh, I
DS
agree.
version.
I'm just saying
That's
you're a tough motherfucker, Jason. You like eat fucking Back to the Future for breakfast and shit out
That's
Terminator
true.
2. You don't care, dude. Like,
That's true. I love a good challenge. I will throw down on that game any time. I'm still going, and I know I say this every year, but I'm going to do it more now that I have actually time. I am going to work on doing a no death run of Super Ghouls and Ghosts. And
Good luck.
I believe it.
Fuck you,
last
man.
time I was practicing, I could get to like level 7 or 8 on the first roundabout. So it can be done. You just
Damn.
you have to. There's a little bit of randomness which you have to get around, but it's not impossible. If I can do that, it will make one of my favorite all-time conquering games, because that game is almost about 45 minutes to an hour and 20, depending on what speed you do it at, to do a full 2 loops around the game to beat it. So it can be done, ladies and gentlemen. If I do it, I will finish a lifelong quest to fully conquer that game. So, because it's hard to do it without dying. Definitely hard to do without
it's
dying.
hard to
Yeah,
do, period,
good
dude.
luck-
For us
good luck,
fucking
man.
plebes.
So we'll see. We'll see. What was Dubious talking about? Back to the Future NES. Take a shot.
To take a shot. We should make an official multi-tap drinking game. If it hasn't been made already, it needs to be.
That's fair enough. Yeah, you're right. That should come up. We don't mention Back to the Future that much anymore. We used to. Nico made it famous with his 87 mile an hour run, which was one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. But
You beat the game, but you fucked up the end. Way to go, dude.
I know you just spent like 20 minutes getting to that point, and you missed it by 1 mile
I
per
spent
hour.
like 40. It's a long game.
Marty goes home and cries into his pillow. Like,
That's terrible. 87 miles per hour. Ridiculous last level, but yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Who knows? Maybe you'll see Back to the Future come up again. We have a lot of old. That is one of the first things that Multitap started out with. I do believe was doing Back to the Future shit. But
Yes.
so, all right. Well, I think we have given Super Nintendo, for all you bitches out there who said we were promoting Sega too much. I think we gave Super Nintendo its day in the sun there. I'm sure the chat mentioned a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about, but yeah, I think we're good with Super Nintendo. So now I think we are. We could always come back to more, but I think we have given it its time.
50 minutes seems pretty solid.
Pretty solid.
Okay.
So
All right. Shout out to Super Turrican. Just a quick thought.
Jesus,
that's
Nico.
not a bad one. I'll give you that. Super Turrican.
I wanted to say Super Turrican.
Yes. So now here's where the interesting thing comes in, because we had talked about it a little earlier, and maybe the chat can help us out, because I know some of you other than Jay Dubious, which I think he told me he was driving. I don't know why he's chatting so much. Somebody arrest Jay Dubious for texting and driving. But
No, he's doing Lyft. He's just sitting in a parking lot watching people walk around.
Are you sitting there watching the Asian chicks, hoping they'll get in your car?
Breathing
Dubious?
heavily into his phone as he watches this podcast.
Exactly. We all know Jay Dubious is a molester, as proven by the last video of the Donovan Show. And Nico, you don't have to tell this stranger danger how he got a hold of you, but I hope he was gentle. That's all I
It was
really have to say.
entrapment. He
Never
used
happened.
pizza crust.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. No, the bearded man did not hurt you. Okay, it's all good. But yeah. So here's where we were talking earlier, where to move into. There's kind of two ways you're going, because this is where music started to really take an interesting twist there. So obviously Nintendo went with their next system, which was the N64. Still staying with the carts. Everyone else was starting to move out into a new realm with discs and whatnot. So now when you move to CDs, that's when the music for games really changed, because obviously you did not have to rely on using MIDIs or like doing sound, like little sound waves for people saying voices and stuff like this. So you had a huge template of shit you could pull from once they got to the CD era. Of course, Nintendo didn't embrace it quite as quickly as the rest of everyone else, but I mean, so it was weird for a couple. We were talking about earlier. There were a couple of years there where a game would come out, and it would come out for 3 or 4 systems, and it'd be almost the same game, but the soundtracks and some of the way the game played, because they would do some live action or some video-based stuff, would be totally different. And the soundtracks usually were the ones that would change completely. For instance, I had one, Demolition Man, came out for Sega, came out for Super Nintendo, came out for Sega CD, and also came out on the 3DO. But the Sega CD version, the music was like totally different because they actually went in and did a real soundtrack. And this is kind of the stuff too, where even Tommy Talrico, I think we had talked about last time, he released, like, they actually did a Sega CD version of Earthworm Jim, where he actually went back and did like live versions of what he wanted the soundtrack to really sound like. So it was weird. You had that time where you could compare the two before everyone went all, digital / wave format soundtrack. So, I'm not really sure. Maybe if anyone can tell me where you guys want to start at. I mean, I definitely would love to talk about N64, but at the same time, there was a lot of really cool music going on in the CD world that was starting to change the landscape of everything. And this is also, like, I'm not talking like PS2, PS3. That's way down the line there. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts. Was it Cat Max? What's he talking about?
This is what I'll say on the subject of N64. I'm going for a complete collection now, but I never had it as a child. That generation was like my video game generation growing up, and I got a PS1, which, like, I don't regret it at all. PS1 is absolutely fantastic, and we can get into that too. But as far as the N64 is concerned, I know we're trying to avoid very cliched soundtracks and stuff like that, but literally I heard the entire Ocarina of Time soundtrack and bought an Ocarina and taught myself the majority of the soundtrack before I ever even touched the cartridge in my collection.
Holy shit, man.
I think that there's definitely a statement to be made that the N64 has some very iconic music on its list.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do we know, Nico? I know the N64 had a pretty big board, much bigger than what the Super Nintendo did. Were they? I know some of them were still rocking like MIDI, but were some of them also doing Wave as well? Did it have that capability?
I don't know. If so, it was probably very compressed, which at that point it would just be MIDI. But I mean, I definitely know a lot of good N64. I mean, I remember starting with the Super Nintendo young, but 64 was definitely my first console, and it had a lot of good games. Obviously, Ocarina of Time.
Exactly. What age were you? Just so we know. What age were you when you got this console?
Around when it came out. But wait, no, we got it when it came out, but my first memory was around, I don't know, 1999, so maybe 6.
Okay.
Around when I remember. I remember Ocarina of Time it's probably the very first video game I ever remember seeing an actual video game. It was probably Ocarina of Time. And yeah, I've had these 64, a lot of the classic titles, Donkey Kong 64, Mario 64, Mario Kart, of course, Zelda's, both of them, and like Paper Mario, and a lot of the first party Nintendo stuff is what I had. But obviously, over the years, taking a good gander at other soundtracks from other companies, still a lot of good soundtracks that the 64 has. Obviously, I can't go completely obscure with that as much as like NES or Super Nintendo, but I mean, I could just pretty much just point to any of the Rareware titles. Like, they all had like their, fantastic soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye, Conker.
Oh my god, Banjo-Kazooie.
Exactly. See,
Ooh.
there you go. That's like probably one of the top
Clunker's Caverns. Oh my god.
Top memorable soundtracks.
What Freeze Easy Peak? Holy shit! Oh man, just to piss some more people off in chat, just because I know how fucking mad it makes everybody that I genuinely fucking love Nuts and Bolts. Like, it's one of my favorite Xbox 360 games. Like, fuck you, I don't care. It's amazing. That soundtrack is more proof that game is criminally underrated. Like, the entire soundtrack for Nuts and Bolts, they just took Banjo-Kazooie and just did it all with fucking orchestras. And it's amazing! And the music holds up so well, and it's just fucking fantastic, and the haters are gonna hate Nuts and Bolts for life. I don't care. But yes, Banjo-Kazooie has a really good soundtrack.
Oh, for sure.
Nice. So you said 99, is that what you said, Nico?
About, yeah.
Okay,
when
so
I started.
you were kind of a couple years after it launched, because the system launched in 96.
64, or 96.
96, so...
Yeah.
How old were you in 96?
3. I was born in 93.
Okay, I don't know when you were born. Okay, 3. I was gonna say that's pretty young. So okay, I mean that kind of makes sense. I remember I think I actually rented the 64 before I actually bought it, just because it was hard to get a hold of at the time. I think I rented it from not Best Buy, Blockbuster, and it was expensive as shit to rent. But I mean, we wanted to try it out. But yeah, that was a interesting. I was 14 when that system came out. Just had my 14th birthday, so yeah, that was interesting time. It's funny that it was your very, very first, but yeah,
Definitely
so,
like getting a lot of the games and just like there's a lot of memory to the 64.
exactly. So I know I have to call him out on this. Nico, I know you're a big Turok whore. Do you have anything to say about the first Turok on N64?
I like the first Turok. I mean, sure, it's very draw distance the game for the 64, but I like the Turoks. I like Turok 1 and 2. I haven't played 3 or Rage Wars for the 64 versions. I like them. Unfortunately, not as memorable music for those games. I still like it, but I wouldn't put it on the tops. For me, it's gosh, I don't know. For 64, it's got to be something known. I love the Diddy Kong Racing soundtrack because that's my boy David Wise. That's his only 64 soundtrack too. So I mean, it really shows that like he was like, all right, this is his only game, so make it as catchy as fuck, and he did.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
That's true.
It is good, and it's a good game too.
It is.
For sure. I like it a little better than Mario Kart 64.
Oh,
it's a little better.
I don't know if I would go that far. I think
I said I like it. I didn't say it was better.
I thought you just said it was better. I thought you said you liked the little.
I'm pretty sure word for word. I'm pretty sure you just said it was better.
Did I?
My whole thing with that argument is that I like the mechanics more in Diddy Kong. Like I think the vehicles handle better, and I like how the weapons work and all that shit. But I really, really like the level design in Mario 64. Yeah. I'll admit that the ones in Diddy Kong have like more secrets and are more wide open, but they're kind of designed because of the game mechanics like that. And like if you think of classic racing tracks, it's like Wario Stadium, fucking Choco Mountain. You know what I mean? Like
Rainbow Road.
Yeah, Rainbow Road 64. Rainbow Road. Speaking of video game music, but yeah, so that's my whole 2 cents on that argument. Like Diddy Kong Racing is a very good game, but
that's fine.
I don't know if it's necessarily better than Mario. They're close.
That's a good debate, though. It's both of those being out at the same time on that system was an interesting time because it is kind of debatable on that one which better. I would take Mario Kart only because I don't have as much experience with Diddy Kong, but I could see the argument a little bit though on that end. So
that's fair.
What else do you have, Nico? What's another one?
I'm going to shout out to Kirby 64. Definitely one of my favorite Kirby games.
Very nice.
I freaking love Kirby 64. It's probably my favorite, actually, Kirby game. It is. I love that soundtrack so much. Obviously, one of all-time favorites, Majora's Mask actually goes up there. Just the, like, freaking Final Hours music, let alone, like, haunted me as a child. But it's also beautiful in a way, too, when the
Song of
clock
Healing?
ticking down.
Oh, my God.
Oh, thank God. And just the lore. Just the lore, too, of Majora's Mask, also burned into my brain of just being like, this is so much cooler. But, props Ocarina of Time as well, of course. That started it all. But, I mean, there's actually a lot with 64. Also, shout out Paper Mario and...
hell yeah.
Actually, Mario Golf, like, you would think, like, whatever. I really like it's very much as it sounds. It's very calming, like, just like... this is so nice. Like, Mario Golf music is so chill and relaxing. I recommend that.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, I would want to interject something, and I'm asking it while Nico's up because I like his opinion on it. Up until this time, I think, and again, we're moving into strange territory, so maybe I'm very off base. I didn't play as many N64 games as I would have liked because I remember, I think somebody, even Dubious was mentioned in the chat, 64... even when it came out, was kind of a hard system to get into because they were pushing the graphical limits of what was capable, and so it always didn't turn out the best. For instance, like, I would probably never go back and play Turok, even though I enjoyed it as a kid. It's so hard to play nowadays. A lot of those games don't hold up and translate well to today. And even at the time, they didn't hold up as well. It's just we were just excited to play anything that Nintendo had, so we did it. You know what I mean? But on that same end, there's not too many systems that I can think about where the music... there was sometimes a lack of music during certain games, and not necessarily the popular ones, of course, but just the regular games, like there was in N64. And I'm not sure if that was I've heard a lot of different conflicting things about the Nintendo 64, that it was a little harder to program for. Obviously, the emulation took a little longer to get worked out, and I'm not even sure if it still is worked out to today, which may be a proof that it probably was a little bit harder to program for. And also, the expense of the carts and all that shit, right? But if I one place I could think of in an N64 games where a lot of the stuff where you're playing the game, the music almost felt like it was second fiddle, and maybe that's because of how well they were trying to do this new 3D graphic type shit. But I mean, obviously, I'm not taking away from any of the ones he just talked about. But there are a lot of just regular games that seem like they just didn't have good music. It was like really shitty, last minute, laid in crap. And I don't know if that was because of they spent so much time trying to get the graphics to look better that they just decided they weren't going to spend the money or the time on the music. But it's just weird. N64 for the games across the board, there's some of the lesser known titles just don't seem to have the attention to detail like it did in the previous games. I don't know what you guys feel about that at all.
Yeah, I mean, like even Castlevania 64, I would lump in that category because, you know, a Castlevania game, you expect it to have excellent music, and half the time on those stages, there's like nothing. It's just ambience or the soundtrack to that game was really just underwhelming, and
the game is underwhelming.
Well, that
fucking disappointing.
Yeah, the whole package is just a piece of trash. Yeah. But yeah, I was so disappointed with the sound on that game for sure. I mean,
well, yeah, but like he said though, I mean, Nico, I want to hear your opinion in a minute, but there are a few games I could think of where it's like you're just going through the level and listening to them running, flying, doing whatever, and you don't hear shit. It's like, did they forget? Did they just go, oh, they're going to be so dazzled by the fucking graphics that we don't have to put music. Save the extra $10 and don't pay that stooge another hour. You know what I mean? Well, I don't know what the thinking was behind it, but it seems like that shit would not fly in the Super Nintendo era, but yet it's flying in the N64. So I don't know what the difference was, but I seem to can think of a lot more games there in for the Nintendo 64 than I can of any other system before it. After it, obviously, music was everywhere because of the availability of it a little more. So, Nico, I'll let you continue. Go ahead.
I think that's fair. I think it's very fair. I mean, obviously, it was new territory. You know, you're going from 2D to 3D. Obviously, I guess just someone thought that, like, the being surrounded in a 3D space will give you more atmosphere if there's, like, lack of music. I don't remember if Turok actually was like that, too, which is also why I probably didn't like it, if it was just kind of like ambient noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you're walking around, you're lost, and there ain't shit. You're just like hearing yourself move or walk or whatever. You know, I just had a thought. You know what? The mix from the 16 to the 64-bit, it's like fucking your girlfriend regularly, and then all of a sudden you have to switch. It's like a jarring switch from going, okay, today I'm going from fucking her regularly, now I got to put it in her ass, and you're trying to figure out exactly how that's going to work for the first time. It sounds like a good idea in theory, but you're not really certain how it's going to go. Now, your first time is always going to be strange because you sit there and you think about it, you go, Jesus Christ, that's where you expel your food excrement out your ass. You want me to put my dick in there? Once you get over that, you're good. But yeah, there was a little bit of a jarring thing between the two of there, and that I just thought about that. I don't know why, but that's the way I look at it. So maybe that's why we didn't get quite as much the music in there. Now, as the later games in the 64 got in, you know, towards the end of it, of course they had the full packages, but it seemed to be just the first couple of years.
Really good soundtrack.
Yes, Yoshi's Story.
Yes.
So.
I actually don't know many games that do like the lack of obvious. It's probably more just a majority of underwhelming soundtracks because I mean when you think of like the NES, you can think of like a lot of just crummy, subpar, average games, but majority of the time the soundtrack is like the most impressive parts. Honestly, once again, 8-bit and like I guess more, I don't know. With 64, I mean some games still use 8-bit sound, but a lot of the time they still try to move towards instruments, but obviously. Wasn't like PlayStation where they could actually utilize like
exactly. So,
yeah. I think for me, Super Mario 64 is one that like is really like one of the most memorable soundtracks for the 64. Actually, F-Zero X is really awesome.
Oh yeah,
it's very like rockin' hardcore soundtrack, and I mean you're just racing, so really. For the most part, you could just pay attention to the music, and it's so fitting too. It is like so hardcore. Awesome fast riffs. Yeah. And Doom 64, especially for atmospheric purposes. Doom 64 probably nails the like best. Game. Yeah. The best just ambient sound of like a 64 game is Doom 64.
Yeah. No, they're definitely very good. So, all right, Wes, hit us with something, bud. Come on.
I'm going to go with Robotron 64, man.
Ooh. Robotron.
Yeah, dude, it's like you're at the club, dude. Like
that's right. That is a very pumping soundtrack.
Man, like, I mean, I don't dance or anything, but man, that game makes me want to get up and dance, dude. Like the soundtrack to that game, you know, it's just the beat. It's just it's so up tempo. It just pumps you up to like shoot the shit out of everything on the screen. It's the soundtrack complements the game so well, and just I've never played the PlayStation version of Robotron, but I heard that the soundtrack is even better than the PlayStation. So that's what I've heard. I've only played the 64 version, but I'll believe it because the 64 version it's intense. It's just an adrenaline rush. So that's the main one I can think of. I didn't play a whole lot of N64 either, and I think you guys pretty much named most of my go-to games already. But yeah, I have to shout out for Robotron 64, man. That soundtrack is just out of this world, man.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, that's a good poll. I had not thought about that one. So, did you have any more, or was that it?
Man, that's really the only one I can think of right now.
I gotcha. Yeah, I know. Nico pulled a shit ton of him out of his ass there for a sec, so it was kind of hard. So, Donovan, you got some, man?
Yeah, I know I mentioned it earlier, but I really do want to hark on the Ocarina of Time soundtrack. And I know that it's a really stereotypical answer, and I know that everybody knows that it's an amazing soundtrack. But, like, specifically, if I had to pick one favorite song from, like, the entire console, like, out of all of the games I've played on the N64, Gerudo Valley far and away takes the cake.
Really?
Absolutely, man. And, like, what really hits me about it is, like, when you play through Ocarina of Time and everything, like, all the music fits where the settings are, and once you get out there, once you get to Gerudo, you're like, this is in this, like, desert prison kind of area. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna get? And you get the fucking what are they called, castanets or whatever, the little clacky motherfuckers, and the guitar and shit. And, like, oh my god, that whole track. Like, literally, once I found the sheet music, that's why I bought it on.
Okay, I remember. Yeah, I remember what song you're talking about.
Gerudo Valley blows me away absolutely every single time I think about it. So whenever I think of, like, N64 music, that's the track for me. And, I mean, the whole soundtrack to the game is amazing. And like Nico said, the soundtrack to Majora's Mask is absolutely fantastic, too. But it's just, I mean, any Zelda game. I'm a big fan of Wind Waker. I'm a big fan of Twilight Princess. Couldn't put too much time into Skyward Sword.
Wasn't fantastic.
Super digging. It's a game that I do want to revisit. I understand that, because that's what happened with Twilight Princess, too. The first time I played it, I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
That one's fantastic, too.
Yeah, and then I replayed it, and I'm like, holy shit, Yeti's Mansion is the best Zelda dungeon I've ever fucking played. Are you kidding me right now? But
that is a cool dungeon.
Yeah, but the point being is, Gerudo Valley, in my opinion, is the best. It's the epitome of, like, what the N64 soundtrack could do, especially just because it's so different from everything else that you hear on it, because it's so stylized. You know what I mean? Like, you really hear the Spanish influence, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like, even when you listen to remakes, and I mean, I know that that's the same game that has, like, the fucking Song of Storms in it and shit. You know what I mean? But I still like Gerudo Valley more, and so that's the only point I really wanted to mention on the N64 music library.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. That's a good one for. Yeah, and again, it's kind of sad. There's not as many that I can think of just because I didn't play the 64 as much. I don't even think how many games were there. I know you're collecting them all down, so you probably know exactly.
I want to say it's like it's 320 something. I want to say.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty.
I thought it was under 300.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is. I could look it up real quick, and I am definitely a person who is more than occasionally wrong on specific numbers. But well, I want to say it's around 300.
I think that's
I want to say
close.
My collection's sitting at like 80 right now, and I'm at like a fourth or something like that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's interesting to think about how less amount of games came out for the 64 than all the rest of the ones before it. I mean, Nintendo was, 6, 7, depending on how you managed what the official releases were. Super had to be over 3. There's seemed to be a shit ton of Super Nintendo games.
Super Nintendo?
400.
Yeah, is it 4? Yeah, I don't think it was as much as NES, but I do know there was quite a few. I think it's definitely more than 64. And, of course, the 64 was pretty low, especially for a system like that. It definitely weren't that many of them. I don't know where GameCube is. I would imagine there was a lot. I've seen a shit ton of GameCube games, so...
Oh my god, I can't wait to talk about GameCube, PS2 era. Like, I know we might not necessarily... I know we might not get to it this episode because we only have like 20 hits left, and we're going to get into PS1 and all the other CD things like that. But holy shit, just to mention it real quick, Favorite song off the entire GameCube library, Luigi's Mansion soundtrack. Holy shit. Fucking mind-blowing. PS2 is the first soundtrack that is the first console that had a game that soundtrack really rocked me. And I know this is a really cop-out answer, and it's because none of it was original. The fucking San Andreas or Vice City soundtrack. That, holy shit. I remember being in middle school and actually getting the box set of the soundtrack, like all the CDs for the different radio stations, and just like, oh my god, that soundtrack. So there's my little tangent. I'm just super excited for the next music podcast.
Yeah. I was, and just to state that too, due to the size of before we go on at least, before the size of the library that we have for the systems going forward, like GameCube, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Dreamcast, all that, Sega Saturn, you'll probably see for something as big as like PlayStation 1 or GameCube have its own dedicated podcast, just because there's so many fucking releases, so many soundtracks you could talk about. And I don't think it would do justice to just do like GameCube and PlayStation 1 in one podcast. An hour and a half is not enough to talk about it. So you'll probably see something more individually focused on those as we go. And especially once we start getting in the more common, or like even the Green Machine, which we'll probably get Dolly Popka on here to talk about some of the exclusive games that were released only on them. But yeah,
Fusion
we'll have
Frenzy
some more fun.
soundtrack, baby.
Yeah,
Hamster balls clanking together. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. So we'll get into some of those, and they'll probably have their own episode, but definitely won't be touching on it today. But I got a few I'll throw in there. Again, I don't have as many, kind of like the other gentlemen here on this podcast are talking about, but I think stuff worth noting that you might not hear some people talk about, but those of us who are around probably know about. Blast Corps. For some reason, that game, when I think about it and when I play it, which I don't play it a lot and I probably should, I don't hook my 64 up enough to even think about playing it on my list. But Blast Corps, I can remember when it came out, and I remember I was really interested to see like what this whole thing was going to be. And you know, the gameplay is kind of interesting because you're demolishing buildings essentially, and you have various different robots or ground trucks, dump trucks, whatever, that you have to do it in a certain amount of time. But the soundtracks were so cool. Again, another great mood setting type scenario, and I couldn't necessarily peg one of them for anything that was just like, oh, it was like a rock soundtrack, or it was like a techno soundtrack, or it was like a jazz soundtrack. It had so many things that it crossed over. I think if you go there, you put in your browser, you put in Blast Corps music, you'll love a good half of the tunes. They're excellent. Almost to me on the level of what a Super Mario Kart 64 soundtrack is. Same quality, different game. But yeah, definitely not one to skip over. If you've never played it, don't know what I'm talking about, Blast Corps is still pretty cheap. I want to say it's like an $8 or $10 game. Definitely something worth picking up on your 64 that you're not going to be, you're not going to hate. And it's really cool. It's kind of like Pilot Wings, another one that you probably should play even if you're not a big fan of how Pilot Wings plays. But yeah, the music on Blast Corps definitely is one of my favorites that I can think of on the 64. I don't know if anyone else.
It's one of those games too that like whenever you get a like bundle, just like a box of fucking N64 games, there's always a copy of Blast Corps in there. I think I have like 3 or 4 dupes of it sitting around loose.
Yeah,
really.
And it's a shame because I mean, and I'm glad that it's out there, but I don't think people mention it as much as they should. But it's a good game. You should have it. You should have it. I mean, it's definitely an N64 game all the way. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me on the music and how good. I mean, I'm sure Nico
agree.
and Don do. I don't know what Wes thinks. Did you play the game, Wes?
I've never played Blast Corps.
Okay, you got it. Then that's homework, man. That's homework for next week. You gotta find yourself a cheap copy, or ask Donovan since he's got like 4 or something.
Yeah, I've got a couple lying around. Actually, thinking about it too, I'm surprised I didn't mention this. Thinking of games that I just keep finding extra copies of in lots. Fucking Mischief Makers, man. Shake Shake.
Dude,
holy fuck!
I literally have that game in my N64 right now. I've been playing it.
Oh, it's so good! I don't know how people don't talk about that game more. It drives me crazy. Soundtrack's amazing.
It is.
Gameplay's amazing. Sound effects are amazing. Level design is creative. Game mechanics are creative. Visually exciting and well-rounded. Oh my god, that game is so good. But just thinking about it, because that's one of those games. Whenever you get like just a box of N64 games, it's just in there. Mischief Makers. That soundtrack's fucking fantastic.
It is. I should have mentioned it, but I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know how I did. Yeah, like, I'm so glad I thought of it now, because seriously, like, what an underrated gem.
Yeah, indeed. Good one to do it, definitely.
Right there. So 64. It's in there. It's like right there.
Is it over there? It's right over there.
It's in there. It's right there. I'm looking at it. It's so good.
Now, I may hit the next one on the nose a little bit because I know I try to stay away from the popular titles. And this is debatable whether or not it's popular because again with the 64, you could probably lay out 20 or 40 games that you should have to own, and most of them are going to be the Zeldas and all that other shit, of course, because they're iconic, and Mario Kart and Diddy Kong and some of the other ones. But I'm not sure if this one makes the list as much. We all know about it, but it's weird. As much as this series is big in the world, I feel as though this game is lost in the shuffle behind the other game that came out on it. And what I'm referring to is Star Wars. Now, there were a few Star Wars games released on the N64, and you had your pick. Rogue Squadron. You had, if you wanted to go the racing, pod racing, which is a very, very popular game, which released on multiple systems.
I think the Dreamcast port is the best port.
I agree. And there were some other ones, and I can't remember. Wasn't it wasn't Battlefront on 64 the first one? I think
so.
Or Battle of Noob. There was other ones. There were
Battle Empire or something like
that.
There was
some. There were.
I only know Rogue Squadron and Shadows of the Empire.
Dark Forces.
Shadows of
the
Empire.
Yeah. So there was something else.
Dark Forces? How is nobody not mentioning Dark Forces? The fucking Star Wars Doom, dude.
Yeah.
Has people not played that game? That game is awesome.
But the one I'm going to pull for the Star Wars is I'm going to pull Shadows of the Empire. Again, huge game when it came out. Like huge. They were like Nintendo Power was pushing it. Everyone was pushing it. And it was weird. Maybe it doesn't get as much press because most of the other Star Wars games were related to the series in some way, like directly related, like to the remake, the first movie, or I think the Battle of Naboo was another one. I think, but of course that's for the first movie. But Shadows of the Empire, which I always pull from because it's one of the few stories that's an in-between, like I wouldn't say a prequel. I don't even know how they label it, if it's an in-between mid-story. But had its own unique story, excellent gameplay, but the soundtrack, it was not a rip-off from the rest of them, kind of like Pod Racer and some of the others where they took soundtrack from the original movies. Shadows of the Empire had its own thing, but in the same style that all the Star Wars soundtracks were. And again, it just helped elevate it that much better. And Shadows of Empire is a long game, and it has a lot of really good soundtracks. So I'm not sure how they reproduced it. I'm not sure if it's like wave format or it's MIDI or what it is, but it sounds awesome, and it fits so well with the gameplay that, again, Shadows of the Empire, when you see it, which you don't see it a lot, I'm not sure if it didn't sell as well or what, but it's like a $10, $15 game. It's not super expensive. It should be more, but it's definitely still low. But yeah, it's definitely one you should listen to the music all the way through, or at least play the game. It's a pain in the ass because nowadays with the shading and stuff, it's a little hard to see and play because it's a dark fucking game. But there's a lot of really good levels, a lot of really good mechanics with the jetpack, and I love playing the fucking last level where where you're flying around trying to blow up whatever the hell it is. I don't know, some mini base or whatever. It's great. And then, of course, they have the speeder bike racing, which is also good. But yeah, excellent game all around. I don't know how you guys feel about Shadow of the Empire soundtrack, but I always thought it was really well done. And I love the story. I thought it would have been really cool to see a movie based off that. I thought he was a pretty cool, engaging character. So, I don't know. Good game. Did you play that much? Anybody else other than Nico, which I know he pretty much did?
I have it, but I haven't played it yet. My plan is once I finish my N64 library, I'm going to go through it alphabetically and play them all one by one like a fucking psychopath. So at some point I'll get to it. But
yeah, S is a long way down there.
It is a little down there. And it's terrible because like my collection's growing and I keep getting all these titles I want to play. So like every now and again it's like, fuck it, I'll put in Banjo-Kazooie for a little while. And I just play it for like 3 hours and I'm like, okay, I need to stop or I'm just never going to put it down.
Exactly. You got to play. Did you play it, Wes?
I played it a little bit like pretty much when it was a new game. One of my good friends had it, and I watched him play it more often than I played it. So it's been a while, man. Yeah, so I really don't remember the soundtrack at all.
Guys got to play it right here. I was very happy to get this game complete in box there. So, but yeah, I really, really like it. Really, really like it. I'm really happy to get this. But yeah, this game alone was such a big release for everybody. I don't understand why it's not just talked about or as mentioned and shit like that. I don't know what the fuck just happened with Skype, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know what Skype. Normally that happens at 4 hours, not an hour 38 or whatever.
Skype's an asshole.
Skype's fucking mad. So let's turn down the lights and put on the romance.
Exactly. I don't know what the fuck. Yeah, I don't know what it happened as soon as I showed Shadows of the Empire. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if
Fuck
Skype's
this
trying to send us a message there. But yeah, Shadows of the Empire. I had another one, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Again, I'm not as versed on 64 games.
Can I help you?
Go ahead. Do you have something, Nico?
Yes, 1080 snowboarding is a pretty.
Oh,
great soundtrack.
hell
Yeah,
yeah!
there you go. I'll lend
I was
that
just
one.
playing that too before Mischief Makers, and I was like, I'm loving it. You know, they got a mix of like some like hip hop and like techno and some like rock, heavy metal sounds. Like really, one of the songs is almost death metal. Like the singer's like, and like, what the hell is going on? I'm snowboarding.
There's not a lot of hip hop on the N64 either.
Yeah.
Oh, this song on that one is pretty awesome. It's like, I like it. It's like this girl just saying, I like that. And I'm like, I like this. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll take the third place one. I can't really think of another one other than, which is a cop out because it was an arcade game. I always thought that Killer Instinct had good music on the Killer Instinct Gold or Killer Instinct 2, whatever you want to refer to. It's kind of a cheat because it's an arcade game. Of course, that's where they got the music. But I mean, I don't know. That was another one that I got pretty much when it came out around launch time, and I was really like into how good it sounded and played and all that stuff. So gotta make a mention out to that one. So I don't know.
Ooh, someone's mic's getting pretty loud.
Somebody's got
might
me
be
pretty
Wes.
mic.
I think it was Jason's. It's resetting.
I think it might be Wes. I think Wes needs to say something.
Oh, really?
What's going on?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
your mic's,
your mic got really loud because you didn't say anything for a while. So
Oh, okay.
so
Never thought.
yes, but so yeah, that's the N64. I'm sure there's a few we're missing, and I some of them I don't want to rip off. Like you could say
covered the majority.
you could say like StarCraft 64, but that was a port from a computer. You could say Command and Conquer, but that's a port from the computer. But
which, for the record, though, those games have fucking fantastic soundtracks, especially
Exactly.
Red Alert. Oh
Yeah.
my god, holy shit!
Oh, yeah.
That album, that soundtrack still holds up.
yeah, Command and Conquer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, if you put StarCraft in the realm of like a top 40 N64 soundtrack, it would be high up there. But it's not. I don't think it's fair to put it there because it really is a computer game. I mean, that stands on its own, and maybe one day we'll get to computer because there's a lot of computer games that had.
We could do a
excellent
whole
soundtrack.
fucking episode on just Blizzard soundtracks.
Yeah. So yeah, but I don't know. That's tough because I mean, StarCraft has one of the best iconic of the time soundtracks. If you've ever played the game, same thing with Command and Conquer. But yeah, not fair to count them in the N64 because they kind of sold their soul out so they could be there. No one should play StarCraft 64. I've had it. I've owned it. I'm a big fan of StarCraft, and I'm not shitting on it. I'm just telling you, trying to play StarCraft on the 64 is the worst idea you'll ever have. That's like I can't even explain to you how shitty it is trying to control it with the fucking the joystick for the N64 because it's so bad anyways. You know what I mean?
It's a rough time, man.
Because you know what? And here's the thing, and I'll tell you this from be honest, because I've played games like that on consoles. I'm the fucking idiot who got Command and Conquer on 360 and beat the whole fucking game. That was such a stress test because it wasn't a point of that the game didn't run well or it was a bad game. It was the fact you had to control it with your fucking 360 joysticks. Whereas if you were playing on a computer, you'd be like 2 seconds. Send your army off. You're trying to group people. You're trying to do this in the middle of an attack. It was horrific.
You know, I will admit, though, I know this is a little off topic, and I can't remember the exact name of the game, but on the PS1, I want to say, I'm pretty sure it was PS1. I don't think it was PS2. You remember the old Army Men franchise? That was the thing for a while.
Yep.
They made an Army Men RTS that actually played really, really well on the PS1, but it was because they had like grouping hotkey to it and stuff. Like everything was key mapped, so it was super easy to jump around the map and select buildings and armies and stuff. I wish I could remember the name of that game, but I actually put a lot of time into it. I remember it being really, really good and thinking, wow, this is actually an RTS I can play with a controller. What the fuck?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, good games, bad way to play them. So won't get into that. Again, I was very proud to have had that game, and then I sold it, I think, to my cousin, I believe. I just didn't really care for it. So overrated.
Nico, my cousin, let's go bowling.
Nico to my cousin, exactly, exactly. Yeah. You have no drifter this week, Nico? I don't see a drifter. No drifter.
No more.
No more drifter.
He's dissolving him in acid in the bathtub.
in the bag. It takes about a month, so can't take a shower until then. But Yes, that's a little joke, by the way. There was a drifter that was in. I
There's
think he
always
was,
an in joke with me. It's
I
like every
think there
month.
was. I think there was.
There are
I think
a
it was
lot
in the
of
last. I know. I think there was the last podcast that he was. I think he was in it. I don't know. You guys might have to watch back, but he'll probably never tell. And I'm not going to make him tell you guys the story because we finally got the truth like 4 weeks after the fact. But it's a terrific story, and I'm ashamed you're going to miss it, but it makes me laugh.
No one will care. It's not important. Just forget.
It's a terrific story.
Nico is like a piñata, just filled with hilarious stories and in-jokes. It's fantastic. He's the best.
He is. So I'm sure he'll give us more whenever he goes to Portland and hangs out with Doobs and Super Derek, which is also another con you will see. When is Portland again, Nico? I don't know.
October 18th and 19th. It's
Okay,
always
so-
a weekend.
Okay,
That's
so-
actually going to be 3 days. So it's like 21st, 2nd, and 23rd.
Nice,
Yes.
nice. So if you miss some of us at SGC, or not SGC, sorry, at Retropalooza this year, the other half of us who live on the West Coast will be going to Portland. I believe.
I'll be at both.
Yeah, Donovan will be at both. Lucius T, I know will be there. Dubious Gaming, Nico the Wee Guy, Super Derek, and I'm not certain who else. I want to say I'm missing somebody else, but I think maybe somebody else will be going there as well. So some of us who are farther out on that side of the world that can't make it all the way over to Texas will be going there. So you can see us either way. But yeah, bottom line, if you see Nico, ask him to tell you stories. Maybe buy him a pizza because I'm sure you won't have a lot of money, and he'll tell you whatever you want to know. So so yeah, Nico has great stories. Or better yet, you'll be in the story, in the making of a story.
Yeah,
Just
you'll
being
make
around
one.
him.
Something
You'll make
awkward
one.
and
Yeah.
horrific will happen. It'll be
Exactly.
great.
So exactly, David Weiss may be there, and Nico may give him fellatio. So,
Take a shot.
exactly.
I don't know this
so-
is David Weiss, but if David Weiss came, that would
Oh,
be
you
fun.
motherfucker!
Oh
Why?
my god, Nico. Holy shit. Just pull his cock out of your mouth, why don't you?
So
Jesus Christ.
So it's all good, but oh wow, Saucy Cock just came in. We talk about dick, and that's where we're. So I don't know. That's strange. When you mention shit, and then people come at you like that. So, oh well. But so I think we're gonna wrap that up for this
Yeah,
one.
because
Again,
otherwise we'd have to start PS1, and then we're going to get into like...
yeah, we can't. Yeah,
Seven.
we're-
Rabbit hole.
Like 2 hours.
Ooh, that's super fucking deep, yeah.
Yeah, again, those ones will get their own podcast because they need that appropriate amount of time. The libraries are ginormous, the soundtracks are huge, and going forward, we'll have that. We may do one more before we hit those because I know PlayStation is going to be a huge focal point, and even though I don't like PlayStation, I know they had good soundtracks. But I would like to touch
blasphemy.
I would like to touch on some of the other smaller consoles. Maybe do a little more research. Maybe hit and do it all in one thing. Maybe like Neo Geo, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn. Just kind of lump them all in the one.
Oh, everything
and talk
SNK
about 'em.
did is fucking
So-
golden, baby.
so-
Are you kidding me?
hit some of those before we move into the big boy PlayStation, and then onward. So we'll try to see if we can do that too. But it's all good. So. All right, well, we're going to call that for episode number 13 for the podcast for music, as we covered Super Nintendo and N64. Again, you'll probably see us back to what Bane was talking about. You'll probably see us in about 6 or 8 weeks, depending on how the schedule rolls out for another one of these. I'm sure these same gentlemen will be sitting next to me to talk about this stuff again, unless we get a substitute. Maybe if we do Xbox, we'll try to squeeze Jay Hicks in here so that he
Hell
can help us
yeah.
out a little bit. But you'll probably just see these guys back the next time. So we're gonna do the wrap up here. We're gonna give some let people shout out some stuff as we go around. We'll let Mr. Nico the Wee Guy start again. So go ahead, Nico. Tell us where they can find you.
You could find me at WeGuy309 for YouTube for 8-Bit Stereo, your favorite 8-bit tunes in a pseudo stereo format. It's nice. Check it out. And Gaming Going Gone, all one word for reviews and stuff like Can You Force It? It's a good
Jesus,
time.
I love you
Very nice.
so much, Nico. That was like a script. That was fucking flawless, mate.
And
That
I
was
want
good.
Nico to do mine.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And I stream, so,
You
we
could
got
be the new
39
big
streams
man
there.
Tyrone. Think about it, little man Nico. It'd be great. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt
Thank
your feelings. I love you, Nico.
It's all right. It's all good.
Nice. So all right, Wes, what do you got, man?
You can find me on YouTube, Westapo. It's spelled just like Gestapo, but with a W. And you should check out my latest review, which I did for the Sega Genesis. Kind of a hidden gem. Not too many people talk about it. Atomic Runner, which has a fantastic soundtrack on the Sega Genesis. But yeah, Westapo on YouTube.
Very nice. And I forget, Wes, did you you're part of the compilation with Rewind Mike's project, correct?
Yes.
You're doing a couple?
Yep. I've already submitted my contributions. So.
Nice. I know
did
we're waiting on a few people, which I won't. I called out last podcast, and I feel ashamed that I did it only for a second. But I won't call them out again. But you know who you are. And I only say that because the more I've been finding out about that project that Wes was just talking about, I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, me too.
And I hate to tell you this, Wes, but I think I'm going to steal the show on that one. But that's just me. I got an ego a little bit. I think mine are really good.
I already heard yours are pretty hilarious, dude.
Yes,
So
so we'll see.
I'm waiting to see yours. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see too. I want to see how everyone stacks up. So we'll be should be interesting. But yes, go see Wes's stuff. He's got a really good channel. Nice up and starter YouTube, even though he is one of the older of all of us. But yes, definitely check out Wes. Mr. Donovan OneEye, who has some really good things he wants to shout out to you.
Hell yeah, I've got some serious fucking plugs, boy. Okay, so first off, if you're interested, I know we mentioned a little bit earlier, but if Overwatch content's anything interested, that's something you want to look into. I help my buddy Veritech do a stream daily. That's 5 days a week. I think we're going to start picking up Saturdays and Sundays again, too. We do 1:30 to 4:30 Mountain Time. You can also check out the Agents Rising tournament that just happened on YouTube. The VODs are up. Him and myself did a interview on there for The Guardians, which is the podcast that we do every Friday. So if that's something you want to check out, I'm over there. Always happy to have people and talk about the game. And then the big plug that I really wanted to do, just because I'm so damn excited about it, is last year I went and visited Mr. Jason Lewis. And while I was there, he had me sit down and systematically break my fingers one by one. And by that, I mean play Sega CD games. So we finally got some of that up. It's on the Multitapped channel, and I believe multitapped.com, The Donovan Show, Episode 1, Dracula. And if you guys haven't seen it, that was the best game I played. So that'll put the whole thing into the frame of reference for you. It's definitely worth checking out. So over at The Guardians on Fridays, and go check out the new Donovan Show. So.
Yeah, definitely. And also, too, I do apologize for being late. It is almost a year in the making now, because I believe we shot it. Actually, it's probably over a year, because I think Donovan
I'm pretty sure it's over a year.
Yeah, Donovan came to my house, I think, March or April, a couple months before we went to SGC. So it has been a while. I just had a lot of
everyone's
shit.
Fucking busy, dude.
Everybody had a lot of shit to do. I'm going to try to get these out on a semi-regular schedule, since the support behind the first episode, or the feedback, seems to be pretty positive. Only thing with that is, which may be disappointing, it's not like a regular show where it's like if I did one and I go, okay, I'll just shoot more. I could only shoot as many as I have, because I don't. Obviously, Donovan isn't with me to do them, so. But who knows?
We can always capture more at Retropalooza this year.
This is true. So I would say this much: if you guys go and watch the show and you like the first couple ones that we put out, and there's a big enough response, maybe I'll drag my my Sega CD down to Texas, and we'll make Donovan shoot a bunch more there, so that you can see him for all of 2017. So keep that in mind if you like it.
Spin kicks.
Exactly. So keep that in mind. So if you like the series, watching it will definitely make it more of a staple in the lineup on multitap.com and the YouTube. So keep that in mind. So did you have anything else, Don? I didn't want to cut you off there.
No, that was it. I think that slew of plugs is more than enough for now.
I got you. So, to wrap mine up, everyone knows Arthur X Jason is my YouTube. I haven't been putting up too much stuff. I'm working on a few games here and there. I'm playing a lot of pinball and also doing some other videos. Probably won't see anything really big from me next month, or I guess this month now that we're in June, because the Gremlins Challenge will be coming out this month, which is a huge undertaking. I have a lot of ideas that I want to do. Hopefully I can get them all done. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. It's not just going to be a race, because that's kind of boring. So I'm going to try to do something special for it, but that unfortunately means I won't have a lot of time to edit other stuff. So stay tuned to that. I think you're going to really enjoy it. I don't know if the people who are involved will enjoy it, because I'm going to give them a little good-natured ribbing there. But but it's all good. It's all good fun. So yeah, stay tuned to that. That's going to be a really big one for me going forward on that. And I do want to make one other thing that's important that I think you guys should know about, and he probably has not said anything yet, but maybe some people in here will be interested. A lot of us stream. You got Rewind Mike. Donovan streams with some of the other guys, not necessarily on his own that I've seen too much. Derek streams. Benny, of course, is like the main streamer. He streams all the time. Serenity Bane, Kovic, stuff like that. But there was one member of our group who I always thought he would be a great streamer, but he just didn't have the hardware to do it. And he has finally gotten some of his shit together and fixed some of the problems that he had technically. So now I think he's going to start doing it more regularly, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. And the man I'm talking about here is Mr. J. Dally Popka, who the Poopka, who recently got a very nice upgrade of his system, and I saw him doing some test streams today. So
Nice.
so he will be, and I know some of you all like the things he did with like Sega CD, where he would play in Sega CD games live, or I don't know if he did them live or recorded them for later. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching his stuff. So I don't know how frequently or when he's going to start it up. I know his channel just either opened up or whatnot, but yeah, so that'll be good times. So yeah, definitely be looking out for Jay, because he's a fun guy to watch. He always got good remarks and shit to make too. So definitely give him a look. I have him on my followed list. So if you all follow me, go over there and take his channel. I think it's just the Dally Popka, if I remember correctly. So not too hard to find. But we will get him on. I promise you, we will get him on here when we talk about Xbox games, because he will know a lot about where we need to go and talk about certain soundtracks. But that's enough of my rambling. We will see you. We'll see you next week. Let me see what it is, because I know it's not E3, because that's in 2 weeks. I can't remember.
Which will be fucking madness. For the record, if anybody here hasn't seen it, which is very likely, the last time Multitapped did an E3 podcast, I'm fairly sure it went on for about 3 or 4 hours and got split into a couple of episodes.
Yes.
So it'll be a fucking madness.
Yeah.
And it was on Google Hangouts.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to be on E3. Again, we're still trying to get the schedule, but there will be one. No, not all of us are into E3 stuff like myself, but I know a lot of us are. So you'll see some good mix of people on there. So okay, so E3 week being the 15th, which will take the place of our in 2 weeks from today, which will be hosted by Jay Dubious and whoever he decides to pick to be on the podcast. Next week is going to be in the rotation. Going to be doing current topics. And I wish we could do more on current topics, just because there's so much stuff that happens in between the time we do these. But yeah, so we'll be just kind of going around addressing, probably touch on some movies, maybe touch on some of the news that's pre-E3 that's going on, or any other controversial shit that's happening. I'm sure if we had done it today, we might have talked about the lady shooting the gorilla, which is bullshit, by the way.
Yeah.
Killed the gorilla, and I don't want to get into that too much, but it's whatever. But yeah, current topics change week to week, so unfortunately you can't talk about the same stuff. I would love to talk about X-Men next week, because I did get a chance to watch that over the past weekend.
Oh.
And I have some interesting thoughts on that movie. And of course we didn't get to talk about Captain America, because Rewind was being a bitch about the spoilers. But yeah, so we're going to be doing current topics next week, and then after that, like I said, we're going to have E3, which I'm not certain, and maybe... it's maybe more than one. It'll probably be like 3 different days. So you'll have to check back for that once I get the final schedule. And then June 22nd, we will be returning to the RPG podcast. This will probably be the 3rd one, as I mentioned before. Kind of trying to get a good group of people back. I don't want to overuse the prolapser, because your ass can only take so much. So we're going to have Alex Sanchez back, or Daria Plays, which she is always great to have on the podcast.
It drives her crazy when you call her Alex. You should just say Daria.
Her fucking name is Alex. That's her Christian name. That's what I'm calling her. God damn it.
That's her God-given American fucking name.
Exactly. This is America. America, damn it. How could you get mad for calling your real name? But whatever. So I'll get off my soapbox. So yes, I'm sorry. So all the rest of you know, Daria Plays will be there. Yes, and Mr. Donovan OneEye will be returning back to the RPG podcast. Mr. Jay Dubious is scheduled. He missed the second podcast I tried to put him in due to some schedule conflicts. So it'll be nice. I think this will be his first one in there. And I know Jay's been clamoring at the chance to do some RPG shit. So this will be really big. And then, because everyone loves him, the man with the hair, our own Ace Ventura, Mr. Super Derek. So
Derek does look good.
He does look good. So Mr. Super Derek will be returning. So that will be a nice lineup there for you. some more RPG goodness. Have no idea what they're going to talk about, but I don't think they do either. They just kind of go in and full force and talk about whatever the hell you want. So that will be really good. So that's kind of the way the week's going to be laid out. So I'll be back next week, and then after that, you won't see me back for probably like 3 weeks. So you guys can see some other people get in here. But this is it. We're going to sign off for episode number 13, and I appreciate my guests for stopping by, and I appreciate you all stopping with us. So see y'all later.
Later.